Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with butter chicken, turkey, and gravy. That's right, we're going to make an Indian butter chicken inspired roast turkey, which I thought was a great idea, and it was. And by the way, this technique's going to work no matter how you like to prep and roast your turkey, which is a good thing, since what wasn't a great idea was the yogurt marinade you're just about to see. But all's well that ends well, and this ended very, very well. So what I did first is mix up a marinade using plain yogurt, some ginger, some tomato paste, some garam masala, some smoked paprika, some chili powder, some ground cumin, some salt, some turmeric, which prevents almost every disease, some ground coriander, some garlic powder, and then last but not least, some cayenne, which prevents all the other diseases. And once all that was together, I went ahead and gave it a mix and set it aside. And I moved on to prepping my turkey, which usually always starts with me sticking my fingers under the skin. And no, not just because it's fun and freaks out everybody watching. It's because I want to loosen that skin so I could get a spatula underneath. Because whenever we're going to roast a turkey, I think we always want to season it under the skin and not just on the top. And even though we can only do this over the breast meat, that's still a lot of surface area. And I really do think this technique should be utilized no matter how you're going to do your turkey. Okay, I really do think this makes a big difference. Although what I usually use as a base for my salt and spices is butter. So as I spoon and spread this marinade under the skin, I want you to pretend it's soft butter. Because if you do this, that's what I think you should use, which I believe we've done in all our previous roasted turkey videos. But anyway, what I did was spread like 3 big spoons under the skin over each breast. And then once I had that breast meat marinated, I went ahead and spread the rest of my marinade over the entire surface. At which point my plan was to pop this in the fridge and let it marinate overnight. Which again, with a seasoned butter is a fantastic idea, but the yogurt was not as successful. But since this was inspired by butter chicken, I wanted to try the same first step, where the chicken is marinated in yogurt and then grilled, and then finished in that amazing creamy tomato curry sauce. So that's my excuse. But the important thing to remember is from this point on in the video, no matter how you've prepped and seasoned your whole turkey, the rest of this method is going to work wonderfully. And that's it. Once we have a fully prepped, nicely seasoned, ready to roast whole turkey, we can move on to the rest of the procedure, which I thought worked brilliantly. And that's going to start by placing a roasting pan over medium heat and melting an entire stick of unsalted butter. And if you're wondering if you can use margarine, please turn off the video. And once that butter melts, we'll go ahead and toss in some ginger and garlic. And what we'll do is give those a stir with our spatula and sizzle it in that hot butter for about 30 seconds or so before we add our spices. And those will include some chili powder, preferably Indian, some garam masala, some cardamom, a little bit of ground clove, and then the only semi-exotic spice you might have to hunt for, some ground fenugreek, which provides one of the signature flavors of butter chicken. And we'll go ahead and stir all that together and cook those spices for about 30 seconds to a minute to sort of toast them in that hot fat and wake up all those flavors. And at this point, your kitchen will be smelling amazing. And as soon as it does, we will stop and add our diced onion. And we will saute that for a couple minutes until it just starts to soften up. And by the way, if you don't have a big roasting pan and have to use one of those foil ones, don't worry, just do all this in a big frying pan and then transfer it in. And this will all work exactly the same. I mean, you are, after all, the Steely Dan of using a non-steely pan. But anyway, once our onions have started to soften and sweeten, we will stop and transfer in some crushed tomatoes. An extra credit if you're using the fire-roasted variety, which again is a nod to the original butter chicken recipe, which usually features char-grilled pieces of chicken. So that little bit of fire-roasted smoky element is very nice in this. And we will stir all that together and wait for it to come to a simmer. Oh, and I think we also want to add a nice big pinch of salt here. And of course, we will adjust our seasoning in the final sauce. But I know we're going to need a little bit. And that's it. Once the base of what will eventually become our curry sauce has come to a simmer, we'll go ahead and remove that from the heat. And we will carefully place our prepped whole turkey over the top, which again can just be a whole turkey you've simply seasoned, which is what I wish this was. And then before this goes in the oven, we have to tuck our tips. Oh yeah, as you might know, my biggest Thanksgiving pet peeve of all time is people roasting their turkey with those wing tips sticking up, which I think is very unsightly and borderline obscene. And yes, we should probably fold those under before we place it on the hot sauce. But that's how strongly I feel about needing to tuck the tips. I was willing to risk burning myself to do it. And then the only other thing I like to do is tie the two legs together, which some people say makes this cook more evenly, but really it's mostly for appearances, I think. And that's it. Our turkey is now ready to roast in a 325-degree oven for about 3.5 hours, at least for me for this size bird, or until it looks like it caught fire in the oven. Oh yeah, that is stunning. And not stunning beautiful, like stunning as in I'm stunned and I don't know what to say. Although I'm guessing there's some people out there that actually think this looks good, since no matter what something looks like, there's someone out there that thinks it looks good. And kidding aside, while it was very dark, the appearance was not the main problem I had with the marinade. Okay, it was actually a textural thing. But we'll get to that later. For now, we're going to remove that from the roasting pan. And we will let that rest while we finish our amazing butter chicken curry sauce inspired turkey gravy. And for that, we will transfer everything from the roasting pan into a saucepan, which I won't make you watch. But once we have that all in there, we'll go to the stove and we will set that over medium-high heat. And we will thin that out a little bit with some turkey stock, which we've obviously made with the turkey neck and giblets and have simmering on the stove somewhere. Or just use some prepared broth. And then we'll also go ahead and add our heavy cream. And if you don't do dairy, this is really good with coconut milk as well. And what we'll do is give that a stir and wait for it to start simmering. And while I was waiting, I went ahead and added a spoon of sugar, just to sweeten things up a little bit and to hopefully balance things out. And some people like to use honey, so if you're into that, that will work. And I don't like this too sweet, so I'm only going to add a little bit, but you need to do that to taste. And then what we'll do once this is bubbling enthusiastically is let it cook for about 5 minutes, during which time it's going to reduce slightly, not to mention start tasting absolutely amazing. So other than adjusting with some salt, we should be okay on taste, but we need to finish the texture, which means blending this very smooth. So what we'll do is remove that from the heat and blitz that with our immersion blender. And by the way, as soon as you remove that from the stove, you're going to have a whole bunch of melted butter floating to the top, but do not, under any circumstances, skim that off. Okay, we're calling this butter chicken turkey, and it would be nice if we meant it. And you'll see as you blend this together, all that butter is going to get emulsified into that tomatoey, creamy goodness, providing just an absolutely gorgeous, luxurious mouthfeel. And then we could strain this sauce if we want, but that's optional, and I'm not going to. But what's not optional is that we need to taste this and adjust the seasoning if we need to. But I'm happy to report mine was perfect. So I went ahead and sliced off a piece of my stunning turkey and ladled some of that sauce over the top and went in for a taste. And above and beyond the turkey's visual challenges, the real reason this marinade didn't work is because that yogurt marinade, especially since it was on that breast meat for so many hours, gave the meat a little bit of a weird mushy texture. Okay, it looked dry, but it wasn't really dry. It was just sort of soft and chalky. And also, if it's on there too long, turmeric can have the same effect. So I think that was partially to blame as well. But luckily, that was only the case for like the first quarter or half-inch down. And as I cut some nice bigger slices and plated up, it really was not that big of a deal. So to summarize, do not use that yogurt marinade. And maybe go with a flavored butter instead. And again, refer to our old turkey videos for that technique, as it really does work beautifully. And then, since this was inspired by butter chicken, I garnished with some sliced red onions and cilantro, which I thought would help cut through the richness of what turned out to be an amazing, truly memorable sauce, which I will refer to as a gravy for the rest of the video. And what I loved so much about this, all those beautiful juices and drippings coming off our roasting bird were being absorbed into our gravy ingredients underneath, which really did take that flavor up to a whole other level. And while certainly not traditional, this was one of the best turkey gravies I've ever had. And of course, I made sure by giving it the old mashed potato test, which it passed with flying colors. Speaking of which, not to diss regular turkey gravy, but I thought the deep orange color of this was extraordinary. And as far as flavor profiles go, I think this is going to work very nicely with all those traditional turkey side dishes. So we got that going for us, which is nice. And by the way, the dark meat fared way better. So that marinade actually would have probably worked out well if we had just done dark meat here. But for the holiday, we really do want a whole bird, I think, which is why I'm recommending a little more standard prep on the turkey. But anyway, that's it. What I'm calling butter chicken turkey and gravy. I tried something new. And while the first step didn't work out as I had hoped, I thought the rest of the method was magnificent. And if you like Indian-style butter chicken, or curries in general, I really do hope you give this a try soon, except for the yogurt marinade part. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always,